Welcome to Recovery Uncovered, your all things recovery podcast. Recovery Uncovered is produced by MHAB Enterprises, a division of the Northeast Group of Companies located right here in Plattsburgh, New York. I'm your host, Mike Carpenter.
Affectionately known as MHAB Mike, and I'm your co-host, Betsy Vicencio.
Affectionately known as BV the Normie. We have one goal in these podcasts, and that's not to suck. Thanks for tuning in. Everybody, welcome to Recovery Uncovered. This is episode Unlucky 13.
Unlucky 13.
I am your host, Mike Carpenter.
Affectionately known as MHAB Mike.
And this is my co-host, sidekick, pain in the ass, call her whatever you want, Betsy Vicencio.
Be nice to me.
Effectively, no, I don't like you today.
No,
and I don't even know why.
I don't even know.
Like
Yesterday afternoon, you went,
I know.
I don't like you
today.
You
pissed me off. You did something and it irritated me.
I probably talked in a full sentence or something, and that just took you right around the bend. You
said something that pissed me off. Well, I was pissed off at Telly first, but then I couldn't be mad at Telly anymore,
Telly.
So I got mad at you.
You got mad at me for defending Telly. I'm here for you, Telly. I took the
so we got like today. It's cool. We got like the 3B women. Actually 4. We got Brianna, we got Bryn, and we got Bitchy Betsy. The 4 Bs. It's very cool. Like I'm very excited about. And then we got Justin, whose name doesn't. Jay
I just want you to know that we are surrounded by some pretty amazing and fabulous young people. All 4 of them.
Before we start that though, can I just say so last night I've been talking about this and I'm all fired up by it. So last night I watched the Crime of the Century on HBO, which was part 1 of the opioid crisis and what happened. And you know, I thought before this, when we did the other podcast, that the Sackler families and all the people that were involved with Purdue Pharma were scumbags. I've gone further than that. I think they're all pieces of shit that don't even deserve to be walking freely in the earth anymore. It is aggravating and maddening. So we're not going to talk about that today, but maybe we'll come back and revisit the fact that these people who are...
promoting the crime of the century is something that people should watch if they want to learn more about the...
It's very well done, and it just goes to show you that money and power and corruption cause people like us to really struggle, and they exploit people, and it's just maddening that stuff happens. And
you know, I've always said that money is really the root of all evils. I mean, I think that statement has been around a heck of a lot longer than I have. But when you see it really come to life like that, money changes people, and not that we don't want money or need money to live our lives and to grow into the worlds that we want to have, but there is a tipping point where all of a sudden money can take you down a really dark path.
And the smugness of these people and the pompous nature and just this idea that somehow people who struggle with addiction or poverty or problems in their life are somehow worth so much less than. It really is just maddening to watch that stuff. And so yes, watch Crime of the Century. I think part 2's on tonight, although by the time this airs, it will be you'll be in rerun status. But anyway, I just needed to get that out because I have this tremendous angst, and it was just added to last night. So you know what happened last night when I watched it though? I stopped disliking you as much because I had somebody else to really dislike.
Oh, that's great. I'm just a hair above the Sacklers. The Sacklers are a piece of shit. No, I'm just a little bit above them. Oh, great.
All right, so we have a great podcast today.
Yeah, we do.
This is going to be really fun. I have 2 people, one who I know pretty well and one who I don't know so well, but I'm very excited to get to know. And you know what? I'm going to be really nice to you today.
Really?
I'm going to let you introduce our guest today.
Oh my goodness.
Go ahead.
Well,
and you know what I'm going to do right now while you're talking? Bryn's going to watch me as I'm thinking about what to say based on what you say. So that's what we do.
Maybe if I start talking, you'll talk right over me?
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah, okay,
that's
so
great.
Go ahead. I'm going to give
So we have 2 guests with us today. And as Mike said, we don't know, I know Justin Phillips a little bit. Justin works with us at the Northeast Group, and he's also one of our residents over at the MHAB Life Skills Campus. So Justin Phillips, welcome. We're glad to have you. And Brianna House. Yeah. Brianna House from Rome, New York, who is currently a resident at the Mary DeVoe Sober Living House.
Yep.
And so we're excited to have you, Brianna, and you, Justin, joining us today on our podcast.
So before we get started, so we don't forget, let's go with the sweatshirt first. So this week, I'm not even really caustic this week. I went with a, what does mine say today? It's okay to not be okay.
This is one of Bryn's designs.
This is one of Bryn's. But I think it's cool as hell that that young woman has a shirt on. You need to show your shirt to the people on the camera, because I think that's awesome.
Yeah, that's a
great
shirt.
Make racism wrong again, and good for you for sporting that. And
I love that.
You're damn right.
Well, I have a bunch more controversial shirts.
That is, you and I will get along really well, because
maybe
it's
we
one
could
of
have
the
like
things.
a competition, like who's got the best shirt of the day. I love that.
Yes, thank you for
That's
sporting
great.
that. You know, we had. Do you know Dr. Stone, Dave Stone?
No.
So we had Dr. Stone on, who's a professor at the college, been in recovery a lot of years, and obviously a person of color, and to talk about race and recovery. So one of the it might actually be out today.
It's out
is
today.
That right? Yeah.
Yep.
The podcast that got released today was Race and Recovery, and Dave and I have been friends for years, and we didn't get into as much about race as we would have liked to, and so we're going to bring him back and have it, and we may bring you back, not to exploit you, but just we think it's important that we talk about that. It's, you know, one of those things, obviously it's in the forefront of everybody's mind, just in general, and we said let's put a spin on it that has to do with recovery, especially in Plattsburgh, New York, which is a predominantly white community. So I know that Dave's talked to me about it a lot of times. So I'm glad you sport that. Thank you for that. Don't ever not be caustic. I think it's the coolest thing in the world when people express themselves.
I think that's a special message.
Yeah, I think it's great.
I mean?
It's
well
strong.
done.
You're willing to stand up and say this isn't okay.
Don't be afraid to bring me back for that conversation. I love that.
We will. We absolutely will likely have.
We would love to have a female voice in the room with that.
See, Justin, you don't have anything special to add. So you're like a one-time guest only. All right, so I think what we're going to do is probably just ask you guys maybe to tell us a little bit about yourselves and how you wound up here, and then we'll dive into the whole history and that kind of stuff. And would either of you like to go first?
How about you, Justin?
All right. Well, yeah, I'm Justin, and
I like her. She's spicy.
Yeah, she is.
So I went through a lot, but I pretty much came up to Plattsburgh to get away from all the negative influences and people in the.
You're Binghamton, right?
Near Binghamton, Endicott, New York, and
Yep.
so I got some family around there, but I also have a lot of unfriendly, people, associates that were into bad stuff. And so after my second time in recovery, I pretty much was like throwing a dart at the map. I was like, find a place as far away from Binghamton as possible so I can go there and live there and start fresh. So that's what I did, and that's how I ended up here.
Did you come to rehab up here?
No, I went to St. Joe's in Saranac Lake. And
and after St. Joe's, you
came up to MHAB. Yep.
How long were you in St. Joe's for?
90 days. It was actually 30 days, but I asked them to get me to 90 days because I just wanted to do everything, take as much time as I could to do what I need to, stay clean this time.
Are you IV heroin user?
Yeah.
Did you start young?
No, I didn't get into the harder stuff until about 24. I smoked weed and cigarettes from 16 up until that point, and did a little bit here and there, but nothing like that until 24. So it was pretty short run comparable to other people that have gone through.
And how old are you now?
29.
And you've been here at MHAB for
about a year and 9 months.
So going on 2 years.
And then 90 days. So
we need to kick you the hell out of there.
I'm working on it.
Move on. And
he's working on it. He's got an
get him
application
out of
for an
here.
apartment, and he's now a leader in our organization. So he's doing really great stuff. Hey, so Justin, can you talk to me a little bit about where you went from smoking pot, smoking cigarettes, to making the leap to shooting heroin at 24?
Oh yeah, well, it was actually more of like a girlfriend association. So I got involved with someone that was into that kind of stuff, and it didn't start right away. I was with them for a year and a half before I ever even thought about trying it. The plan was to help her get off of it, and I had known her for years, so it wasn't just like a random, so that might have helped towards, actually, because who just jumps into something like that, but.
It's always women. Every problem I've had in my life started with that. So I'm with you, Justin.
But it just happened, things happen. But so I ended up wanting to relate, and so I started doing it. And she even told me not to, but I did it anyway, So it was all my fault. It wasn't really her fault, but she was into it, and that's how I got curious and got started into it.
Did you? You're an IV user.
I was.
Do you? Well, yeah. Thank you for that. You're not anymore. You were. Do you have any of the long-term ramifications like Hep C or any of that stuff? Or
Yeah,
were you
I'm
pretty
actually
able to stay?
getting into the treatment for that.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, good for you.
Yep.
That is one of those synonymous. Thank God the treatments are so good now. It's almost.
If I didn't have insurance, I would never be able to afford it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
All right. Well, good. We have specific questions we're going to ask you in a little while.
Oh, okay.
He seems very excited.
He
about
does
it.
seem very excited, doesn't he? Brianna, so you're young.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
tell us about your life and what happened to you and how you wound up here.
So I started using drugs, drinking, all that around 13.
Yeah, you were young.
12, 13. I don't really know. Do you want me to just start with like how I got to Plattsburgh and then kind of go from there?
Well, I think I'd even be interested. You're not from here, obviously.
No,
you're
I'm
you
not.
said you're from Rome or the Utica area. Is that
Yep.
right? You just your family, mother, father, siblings.
Just ended up there. I lived in the same house for 18 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my mom, my mom is an alcoholic and my dad's an addict. And, you know, my family's very informal. Like it wasn't, you know, I was able to drink. Like we had at my aunt's, we had a bar in the basement. Christmas, you know, whatever it is. At 13, 14, you could go downstairs and take a shot. It was what it was, you know.
Right.
And, you know, I mean, I think with the life that I was living and what I was put around and grown up around and how drugs weren't like too far off. Like they weren't this thing that was told to me like, you know, you got the bear in school that they have and like drugs are bad, but like that's not how it was taught to me by my parents. Like nobody really really sat down and had that talk with me. I remember one specific time that my grandpa's also an addict. He's 29 years sober now, or clean. And my mom sat me down one day and she said, you know, be careful with drugs because you can get addicted. And that was like it. I was like, okay, whatever. So like, so then I just kind of, you know, the people I was surrounding myself with, it was, you know, everybody was doing drugs. It was older people. It was like, you know, Molly, whatever, you know, Coke, whatever. Yeah, it was, you know.
Yeah, because you're newer. This is in like the 2014, 13, 15 era.
Yeah.
So how did you, so you're in Rome or that area. How did you wind up in Plattsburgh?
Plattsburgh. So I was 18 and I was mixed, you know, still doing what I was doing, and so I actually came up here. Sorry. I actually came up here with a friend who was trying to sell drugs, and and they're like, oh, come up to Plattsburgh, this and that, and all this stuff. And normally I don't go with people I don't trust, but I mean, at that point, like, really was this like too far off from what I was doing? So I came up here, and so I had drugs in my pants right here, and I did not put them inside of me because I was too scared to die. And they were like, so this
smart drug addict. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, nope, that is not wrapped enough. This cop, the state trooper, or actually no, we got pulled over by the canine unit.
Yep.
As we were, you know, coming up, smoking crack in the car and all this stuff. So the person that was driving didn't have their license on them. They had like a picture of their license, and I'm like, girl, I got mad drugs back here. You gotta have your stuff on you. So so then she gets out of the car because, you know, at this point we just have no anything. And he pulls a bag out of her pocket because she had like a little bag of like crack coke, whatever it was, in her bag, in her pocket. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to jail today. I'm going to jail. And that's exactly what happened. I went to jail. And, you know, so I'm 18 years old. I had no priors. I had never, you know, gotten really in trouble, I mean, by my parents and stuff. But other than that, anything else, it was stuff I could get bailed out of. So they, my parents bailed me out. And I go home and I'm back to doing the same stuff. They told me that I had to go to outpatient, you know, all that stuff. And then I finally get on drug court. You know, I signed the paper. They're like, oh, you got to stay sober for a year. I'm like, yeah, I could do that, whatever.
Was that Clinton County Drug Court, or
yes.
were you back in?
I was back in Rome, but
You got sentenced up here.
But I got
So
sentenced up here.
What was they arrested you for? What, possession?
Yep, possession.
Okay.
It was a B felony.
Yep.
So
Was it intent to sell? Is that why you got just possession?
Just possession.
Yeah, you're lucky. Yeah.
Really
no,
lucky.
No doubt. Yeah.
You went home, but you had to come back up here for your sentencing.
Yep, I came back literally for like 2 years. I came up once a month, basically,
Yep.
for court.
So you lived while you were in drug court, they let you live back home, but you had to come up here. So you went to probation, I assume, down there?
Not until I got sentenced. There was like nothing except for the outpatient that I had to, go to, and that was just to make myself look good, which really did no help because, I couldn't stop doing drugs, so
Right.
it was like pointless. Yeah, and one day I slipped up. I didn't, I was only drinking and I started using drugs again, and, and the detoxes didn't work. So I took a drug test and I pissed dirty or whatever, and
It's
yeah,
okay.
they
Piss
sent me-
dirty is
Okay, I'm
acceptable
like,
on
yeah,
our
he's
podcast.
yeah, I'm trying to like,
You'll
I'm
hear,
like,
you'll hear a lot of four-letter words.
Yeah, we're
Okay,
good with
sounds
that.
It's all good. You be you. So
yeah. So yeah, and then they sent me back up to Plattsburgh, and I went to jail, and I remember they were telling me that I had to live in Plattsburgh, and I'm like, I'm not living in here in Plattsburgh. I'm going home. I don't know what to tell you. But obviously that's not my decision anymore.
Right.
So they told me that I had to live in Plattsburgh, and he gave me a date, and he said, if you did not sleep over the night before this date and, coming to court at 11:30, then you were going to prison. And I was like, I'll be here. So I came up here, I called the homeless thing, the homeless line, and I stayed in some hotel. I walk into the hotel, there's Coke on the side table. I'm like, you're not going to get me again. And I wiped it off. Yeah, so then the next day, I think I went to a meeting because my friend back home got shot in the head. And I was like, and I remember I was standing outside a Coffee Cat, and I knew that there was a bar, I think it was like Olive Ridley's or something like that.
Right
and
down
I'm sitting there and I'm like, I could go find drugs, because I know if I go to a bar, I can find drugs. And going in Coffee Cat, and I go into Coffee Cat, and I'm sitting there, and probably on my third latte, and I go up to Patty, and I'm like, listen, I'm an addict. And mind you, I've never admitted that I was an addict before, ever. And I'm like, I'm an addict. I need help. I don't know. I don't know what to do. I don't know anybody here. I need a meeting. And so she's like, go sit down at that table, and if you move, I'm going to tackle you. And I'm like, okay. And she was a little bit bigger, so, and I'm kind of small. So I'm like, I sat there, and I drank my coffee, and this kid comes in. And he happens to be a member of AA, and he brought me to a meeting. And I kid you not, 2 minutes before I share everything that's going on, my friend just died, and this and that, someone who's really close to me. I'm homeless. I live in this town. I don't know anybody. Tanya walks in right before I'm going to share. And when I always cry when I say it, and then after Deb came up to me and she's like, if you need a place to stay, then we have beds. And that's how I ended up in Plattsburgh and at the Mary DeVoe house.
Did you go to rehab or did you go right to Mary
I didn't go to
DeVoe?
rehab. I did not.
No.
Somehow I did not end up in rehab. They kept trying to put me in rehab, and I'm like, I'm not going there. And so I kept talking people out of it, and I missed the whole thing, so I kind of detoxed in jail.
Are you still on drug court today?
Yes.
You said, what phase are you in?
3.
So you're at the end. Justin, did you have any criminal stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, I had a couple petty larcenies, stealing from like Walmart and stuff like that, and possession of drugs. Nothing like major.
You didn't have her
like,
kind of
small
criminal
amounts.
stuff, though. You didn't have drug
Didn't
court
have
or any of
No,
none
no.
of that. No probation.
I had 3 years probation.
When you came up here?
I was halfway through when I came up here, so not that long ago I'd finished it.
Yep.
So, sorry.
Go ahead.
Brianna, so it feels like divine intervention. I mean, talk about a series of fortunate events that kind of took you through this path. Patty, the owner of Coffee Cat, clearly made a phone call and somebody showed up and took you. I mean, all of these things just happened. That's amazing.
Patty's been one of the, I've been involved in a lot of addiction stuff up here and things to help the community, and Patty's been an incredible supporter over the years. I can't tell you the number of meetings between people that have happened at the Coffee Cat over the years, and she has just been a huge, she's like a kind of a mother. So she does, but I'm not surprised that she would, and she would have tackled you probably.
Yeah. She seemed serious.
Yeah.
Like her voice got real stern. I was
yeah,
like,
she no doubt about it. So you've been at DeVoe for how long now?
16 months, somewhere around
16
there.
months?
16, 17. I just celebrated 18. Somewhere between 16 and 17 months.
Yeah. So
That's awesome.
do you like it up here? What do you think of up here now that you're living up here?
I love it up here.
You do?
I've been connected with all the, I swear I came to Plattsburgh and was connected with all of the best people that I possibly could have met in this area. I don't think that, I did go to a couple meetings back in Rome and, and they're great, but it's like, there's nothing like Plattsburgh.
Yeah.
There's nothing like Plattsburgh
It's
for
a pretty
recovery.
strong recovery community if you kind of open your mind and just keep going back a little bit.
How do you feel about it up here? Is your plan to stay in the Plattsburgh
I
area?
really like it. Now it's funny though because people that grew up here, you'll hear them talk, "Oh, Plattsburgh sucks," or it's not, but they don't know the town I came from was real ghetto. It's actually a really nice town.
That's an interesting statement. I was born and raised up here, and I was involved at a very young age in the whole lifestyle. And I was one of those people. I couldn't wait to leave. And I moved to Poughkeepsie first, and then I moved to Danbury, and I actually worked in New York. And I partied and did all that. And when I came back here when I was 27. I'd gotten that out of I'd seen the other side. I'd seen the lifestyle in a bigger area and what it was like. And I was like, Plattsburgh does have something that those places don't have. And you're right, though. If you live, and I suppose it's like a city. If you're born and raised in a city, you come up here and you might not like it at first, but after a while you begin to appreciate it, and you probably also miss, the home and your family and things. But yeah, you're right. Plattsburgh is a I think we have a strong recovery base up here. I think that we're pretty insulated from a lot of the world's ills, because it's such a small community, and yet you still have access to a lot of things that you can do, up here in cities and places if you need it. So.
And I think that our community, so you've got both recovery community and then community that's really, really, really strong. And I do think that we have a community that looks out for each other, and we want to make our community a better place. And it is kind of special, and I think we're just the right, we're the right size for that. You can know most of the people that you can run into. If you need something, there's always a resource. Somebody's willing to raise their hand and say, "I'm willing to help you out." It's a community where if you let it sink in, you can easily become part of it, because we're very welcoming.
So I'm going to tell you a couple of stories. First off, you're an MHAB resident, you're a DeVoe House resident. DeVoe came before we did, and I've known Loretta since the day Loretta came into recovery, and she was on the podcast. And I think Loretta would probably tell you that when we first met, we were not necessarily fans of each other, although we've grown to be pretty great friends.
Hard to believe you and Loretta didn't get along when you first met.
Maybe we're both just a little too opinionated, but we've grown to be really great friends. And I remember when she started the DeVoe House, how great it was in this area. The halfway house that we used to have, that we have here, Twin Oaks, used to be co-ed. And then when it went away from co-ed, 20 plus years ago, there was no woman's place up here. It was all just men, and we're like, my God, we need something for women. And when the DeVoe House opened, she had no struggle in getting people into the beds. I mean, there were plenty of women that needed it, and there have been tremendous success stories out of there. There have been some failures too, as there are in every recovery community, but what they've done over there is just fabulous. How many does she house over there? You have 9?
We go from 9 to 10, somewhere around there. Yeah.
And you guys are all, so that's like a pure recovery living house. You guys are all kind of responsible. You're supposed to pitch in financially, you pitch in with chores, that kind of stuff. Is that how it works?
Yep. Yeah. Everybody, does their part in the house.
Yep.
And there are specific house rules that you have to abide by in order to live in the house.
Yep. There's you can't get into any extra legal troubles. Curfew. Respect each other. figure out, if you got a problem with somebody, figure it out. Like, you know.
No overnight guests, probably.
No overnight guests, no, but you can have overnights outside of the house.
I was going to say, you can leave and go
Yeah.
stay somewhere else. You just have to let them know that you're going.
Yeah.
Kind of, is that right?
It's pretty, yeah.
When you first moved into the house, Brianna, how was that structure for you? Was it, I mean, were you okay with it, or was it hard to get used to?
I was terrified.
Yeah.
I was absolutely terrified. I didn't understand what safe was. So to bring me into that environment, I mean, the doors are locked, like, and these people want to help me, and I'm like, I don't trust anybody. But it's like, and it's hilarious because, like, you know, if somebody were to come up and give me a bag of drugs, I would immediately trust them.
Right.
But I mean, they were trying to hand me food and like blankets and sheets and like, you know, make sure that I have like, you know, soap and stuff. And I'm like, who are these people? I hated it, and I freaked out for like a good 3 months.
What do you want?
Like,
what do you want from me?
Yeah,
Why are you
like,
giving
what
me?
do
If
you
you're
mean?
giving me blankets, you must want something
Yeah.
from me.
And like the soft knocks on the door, I've never dealt with that before. My mom used to just.
Did something change in you? Did something happen that just made you become more trusting? Was it one event, or did you just decide one day that, okay, these people really don't want to harm me, they just want to help me? Or was there any defining moment there, or was it just gradual?
You know, I can actually remember the exact day I realized that I loved that place and that, you know, something had changed in me. Yeah. I was at outpatient, and I was talking to my counselor, and I thought that I was going to get sanctioned because I missed an appointment on drug court. So I thought that if I got sanctioned, that they weren't going to hold my bed and I was going to lose the house. And I was freaking out, like bawling, I'm freaking kicking, screaming, like not having it. And then, you know, when it's, you know, I talked to Tanya and she was like, yeah, we'll hold your bed. Like, why would you even think that? But, you know, that was my thought, that I would lose that house. And that's when I really realized that that I love that house and I love the people in it. And after that, that's when I started to more appreciate the things that were around me.
Right. It is that defining moment. What was your experience when you came to MHAB like?
Well, I was curious. I wasn't sure what I was getting into at first, but it really turned out into like an awesome opportunity. Like, you know, you use it the way it's designed to. Like, look where I'm at now. You know, I've been working at the Northeast Group now since within a week of moving into MHAB, and I'm still working there. And like you said, I moved up to a lead position now, and I'm really loving it. Like it's a good stepping stool for sure.
Yep.
You know, it gives you tools and opportunities. You know, you did everything you could to make a good setup for everybody there. I really like it.
Yeah, that, you know, it's funny that was, you know, these whole sober living communities are kind of a new trend. They're not halfway houses, but they have some structure, a little bit of structure. We're actually at MHAB less structured than they are at DeVoe. We're a little more, you know, free with the people. We don't like. Does Tanya doesn't live at the house. Her and Pete live off the house,
yeah.
But she's there. You know, we don't necessarily have somebody at the residence, but there is somebody on site, and it's somebody that's in recovery. So it's not dramatically different, maybe just a little less structured.
We don't have the curfews that they have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we do have no overnight guests just because it could become a, you know, crazy.
What I like about what you just said, Justin, is that if you use it the way it was designed, and I think you took advantage of virtually every single resource that was available there. You know, you got yourself involved.
Not to mention, there's a recovery center across the parking lot too. Like what is it? Always a recovery.
Always to recovery center.
Like not like a, you know what I mean? Like they got resources. They had, it was a real big help to me at first when I first started there. I didn't have like anything. I had a couple bags of clothes, so being able to use the computers over there or go over to play games or, you know, for my free time, or it was really nice. And
just to have something to do too, and people. There were always people there, right? People to talk to.
So I know that you got involved with a few people over there, or people that we work with, and got into hiking and running and doing some of that. Is that right?
Yeah.
Stuff that you didn't do before?
Oh, I love doing stuff like that. I just didn't have like mountains to hike where I came from, so.
Right.
But I like exploring, like going out in the woods and stuff like that, or going on adventures. So now being up here in the mountain area, it's nice going on hikes. I didn't get to do that before.
So now you came to MHAB, and you were still on probation. Mm-hmm. You didn't have a license, a car. You had none of those things. So tell us about some of that part of your life that has changed and evolved in the past.
Didn't you help him with this?
16 months. Did I? I don't know that I did.
Is that
I
what
think
you're trying
Franny
to
did.
do? Get credit?
No, I think
Podcast for helping
Franny.
him?
I think
No,
Franny
as
did.
far as the you talk
Oh,
about
it's
like
Fred.
the license, like
Yeah.
when I came up here after working for so long and saving up, I knew I had a year suspension on my license, but after a year had passed and I still didn't have it, I had to look into why it wasn't there, and I realized I had an old ticket for driving with no inspection. The simplest little thing is just holding it as a suspension. So I had to get a hold of the court from where I moved from, send a plea of guilty to it, pay the fines, which ended up to about $300, including the unsuspension.
Which would have been a $50 fine if you had paid it at the time, probably. But you didn't.
you know,
so
the
yeah,
subcharge
it's
and
crazy.
everything. So
Yep.
I paid it off, got my license back, and then, you know, saving up. And then my dad and my stepmom had a vehicle that they didn't need and actually brought it up from Florida for me to use. And so that's how I got that.
How do your parents feel about how you're doing now?
They think I'm doing great, which I mean I feel like I'm doing great. You know, they're really happy to see me where I'm at right now compared to where I was.
How do your parents feel about what you're doing?
Amazing, and I think also a little insecure.
They're a little insecure about how well you're doing because
Really?
they struggle with addiction themselves. So
Every
it's
time I talk to them, they constantly they tell me about their drinking.
Right.
I didn't ask you.
Right.
But yeah, they're really happy with me, and when I made my amends, they were really like, you know, my mom just said she wants me to just live my life like the way that I'm living it and explore everything and do everything that I want to do.
Isn't it funny that people that struggle with it, they want us all to do well, but then they become uncomfortable when we're doing well because they know at their core, they're like, I probably should do something too, but I'm just not going to do it.
Well,
It is
but
interesting.
if it's your
that
parents, you know, I mean, parents, we have guilt. If we, you know, our children have gone down a dark path, we have some guilt thinking that we're responsible.
You know, I'm going to
in
tell
some
you a
way.
story that I tell every 2 weeks on the podcast. Betsy has a daughter that's an addict who we helped to get clean, and she's been clean now, 7 years?
She'll be 8 years
Wow.
in September.
Eight
It's so exciting.
But her daughter is just an addict because Betsy caused that. So we blame Betsy
He
for the whole. Yes, we
constantly
remind
blames
her that.
me for her addiction.
Yes.
Oh
At
my
every so
gosh.
I'm like,
I had to bring her to rehab twice, and I'm not her father. I'm not her. You know, I'm just like the pseudo father. That no, it was a great experience. It was a great experience. So, what do you want to do with your life? You're young, right? How old are you? 20?
I'm 21.
21. So
Wow.
you're really young, and you have almost coming up on 2 years.
Yep, I'm 18 months. 2 days ago.
Yeah, my wife. You know my wife, Liz,
Yes,
got
Liz.
sober when I think she was your age, 19 or 20 was the last time, and she's now 24 or 25 years. So that's really cool. You have
is
such
awesome.
a future ahead of you. I mean, it's just is so inspiring to hear that. Not that you got sober when you were old either. I got sober when I was 26 too, and I'm like, Jesus, I wasn't this old guy. Like it's still, but when you
I was
think
gonna
about
say,
like 19 is
they're
or
both
20,
really
that's
young.
pretty cool. So what do you want to do with your life?
If I were to, if I could choose, it would be I would like to build a giant nonprofit, like gigantic, and I would have like kids from the hood or like places that I came from or like you know I guess like Chicago, like stuff like that, and have them flip houses. I would teach them like real estate law. I'd teach them how to be homeowners. Like you know I would give them trades like being electricians and like all that type of stuff. And then also add on like addiction services and therapy and all of that and other family services, and that's what it would be. I
Right.
guess it changes almost every day, but that's my kind of initial goal as to what I want to do, because I have a huge I have a lot of brothers and sisters, and I think part of it comes from the guilt that I have for leaving them because I had to, and you know I have this thing where I want to save everybody, and it's like you know, and it's hard to like cap that, but that's what I want to do.
You know,
it keeps coming up.
It's
honorable.
interesting that
really honorable.
you know what you're talking about is kind of what we tried to do at MHAB, albeit not a not-profit. We did it as for-profit for a variety of reasons, but we wanted it to be a life skills place where we could give people all of those things. Like it didn't matter what you struggled from, if it was mental health or just poverty or addiction or whatever, and give them all of the resources so that they have the ability to have this great life. You know, you and I should talk at some point about what you want to do, and I will tell you that we've seen people who were at their worst, like me. You know, at 26 years old, I was, you know, broke and homeless and unemployed and unemployable, and I mean, I really was. And you know, today I'm 57 years old, and you know, I have a couple of businesses, and we have the MHAB, and you know, all of those things. And that, if you asked me at 26 if I ever thought that could happen, that there was no part of me that did. But it was always a dream of mine that if I work hard, I might have opportunity. And when it comes to fruition, you do realize, and I love hearing young people be so inspired about wanting to do things like that, because it is possible. Like it really is very, very cool. What do you want to do with your life?
You know, I'm not exactly sure yet. All I know is that I just want to, you know, enjoy every moment, you know, like whether I'm working or not, you know, life is an experience and you make of it what you want. So I just try to enjoy it, work and save up and move forward.
So, all right, so let's ask the operative. Did you fall in love yet in recovery?
No, and I'm actually with myself.
I like it. Very good. Great.
Aren't you lucky?
Awesome.
That's
I'm like
awesome.
the happiest I've been in a long time, and I got no kids, no girl, nothing. It's just me focusing on me.
Good for
It
you.
is amazing how when you're a guy and you have no women in your life, you're really happy.
I love it that Justin has, you know, you found a relationship with yourself that you can live with, right? And you feel good about who you are and what you do, and you know, you enjoy communing and spending some time out in the woods and hiking and just finding your center. I think that's amazing, absolutely amazing.
So I'm going to put you on the spot because I know. So did you fall in love?
Oh, yes. I was quick with it. That's the first thing my sponsor said to me, and I was like, yeah, okay.
So we know your significant other, and we love your significant other, and he's I really think the world of him. So tell me a little about that. How did you guys meet?
A meeting. And then Tinder.
Boy meets girl on AA campus. Oh yeah. You know that two sickies don't make a wellie.
No. Oh God. Yeah.
Are you guys moving in together?
Yes, we are.
Oh, good for you. So when will you leave DeVoe?
Probably within the next week.
Wow.
Oh wow.
Yeah, one of the girls is going to help me. That used to live at DeVoe. She's got a big van. So.
Wow, that's a big transition for you.
Yeah, and then I have to, you know, Brandon is going to be there all the time.
So
which is going to make it quite a bit different than what it is right
and
now.
Everything. It's weird.
So. Yeah, relationships are not easy. So it's a great, you know, whatever. I think life's an adventure, and you got to make the most of it. But good, you know.
It worked out for me, but I mean, for some people, I've seen it crash very badly, and I understand why people tell you not to get into a relationship, because I thought it was like this whole you know, because of I don't know. I think I just thought people were trying to control me, but really it was because of that, like, you know, finding yourself and being able to find that. And I mean, I was very good about setting boundaries and being able to have my specific time and work on myself and my relationship. But not everybody is good at that. And, you know, and especially coming into recovery, I mean, we have codependency and like all that type of stuff that, you know, interferes with that. And I struggled a lot. In the beginning. So
listen, it's not like you get to take a class in middle school or elementary school, like how to manage relationships, how to set boundaries. We don't get any of that. There's no rule.
Betsy's really good at it. I mean, you've been married 9 times.
Shut up.
8, 9.
I've been married several times, and it's fine. I've had my own.
Good for you.
My own growth path to find my way into navigating relationships. I'm really good at getting married.
You are really good at getting married. You're just not really good at being married.
I'm not very good at staying married.
I like that.
But I have come a long way. I'm in a great long-term relationship now, albeit 272
and I was going to say, why does that work so well? Because you're 272
miles apart.
Right.
But it works.
We do like John.
John's
Locke.
a good guy.
You know, you bring up an interesting point, Brianna, that you don't realize when you get into recovery that probably most of the pitfalls are not the pitfalls that we think they're going to be. You know, we think we're going to trip up over outside stuff. It's typically the inside stuff, and part of the reason why, you know, people like me that have been around a while and tell people that are newer not to get in it isn't because we don't want people to have a good relationship or fall in love or do any of those things. It's that the emotional swings of that oftentimes take people out. And you know, there's some interesting statements in recovery about, you know, we get these things from being in recovery. And then what happens is we start to, when our life gets busy and full, the thing that we start to slip away from is the recovery. The thing that gave us all of these great things is the thing that we start to slip away from. And then when that happens and some crisis hits, we're not prepared to handle it, and that's when using becomes an option. So it really does all tie in together. Like it's this big ball of stuff that if you tie it in together, you can do it. But yeah, it's relationships particularly, and whether it's an intimate relationship with a significant other or family or work partners or any of that, they really are difficult. Like they're just not easy to navigate. So I'm glad that you have that perspective on it. And you know, let's be honest, we love Brandon. You know, really, I've known his family for years and years, and you know, I've known him now for a while. And yes, I think that the recovery community that kind of looked at you two said, oh boy, this is a really terrible idea. But I will tell you, when my wife and I got together, and we've been together now for 21 years, it was the same thing. People in recovery were like, this is not going to work. They're not, and there's no magic bullet to it. It's sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And if you stay connected, the recovery piece, it can work out.
I was going to comment that I think you and Liz in particular, your connection to your recovery community has helped your relationship flourish, and I think
she won't even sit next to me if we go to meetings. Well, but that's because I like want to talk to her throughout the whole meeting, and she
wants to pay attention.
She's like, I want to listen, and I'm like, I don't care what.
Hard to believe you want to have your own agenda in the middle of something else going on around you. I'm just saying, it's, you know, it's probably common.
So all right, so how old are you? You're 28, 29?
29, knocking on the door of 30.
Give somebody that's 25 that's coming into recovery in a new community, doesn't know what the hell they're doing, any of that stuff, what should they do?
Give them some advice.
Well, they should focus on themselves, you know, like that's what I did. I got my life in order, just focus on myself, and that was the best decision I ever made, and that really helped me get on the path to a right direction, at least. And
did you do 12-step meetings? Do you do 12-step stuff? Or
at first I did, and I mean, every now and then, more or less, what I do is I go to church. I found a religion, you know, and that's one of my main things is I go to church every Sunday religiously, and I'm not perfect by any means, but I try to live a better life.
Good for you. You have community at church, people that you're friends with, that kind of stuff?
It's a very nice, smaller church, so everybody knows most everybody, and
good for you.
It's a good,
So we got a 19-year-old girl coming into recovery in a town she doesn't know. What would you tell her?
Find the nearest meeting and stay there.
That's awesome. And you're a 12-stepper, I assume.
Oh,
you do an awful lot of that. That's worked for you. You're connected. You go pretty regularly.
Yep.
Yeah. So what other advice would you give them? Anything else?
I guess no boys. And find the Mary DeVoe house.
That's great. Loretta's going to be very thankful for your little, your little public service announcement for the Mary DeVoe house.
I will push. I mean, I'm definitely a pusher when it comes to DeVoe. I can't help it.
Well, it's a woman-only sober living community, and I think that there's so much great value in having a place that, for women to be able to identify with other women through some of the real challenges, and I think that that's key, is finding some place where you have a connection that helps you center yourself, right? And I think you really got centered at the DeVoe house.
Yeah.
Will you stay in Plattsburgh? Is this like home now for you, or I mean, not forever, but does it feel like home?
It does now.
Yeah.
I mean, I could do without the one-ways,
yeah.
but
The one-ways?
The one-way streets.
Streets, 'cause the
Every
roads,
street
yeah,
is-
they're all in the city. They're all like that, yeah.
You miss one turn, you gotta go all the way around.
I could do without the one-way street. You know, there's currently a proposal in the Common Council, or not a proposal, there was a survey that came out about whether or not they should change the one-way streets to two-way streets.
They've been back and forth on
Yeah,
a lot of those
that's it.
streets. A
Back
lot of
and
them that are
forth from what?
one-ways have been two-ways before, yeah.
To determine whether or not we should make the one-way streets both two-way
Depends
streets.
which regime is in power that they, you know,
But
sometimes
the survey
they,
just came out. Yeah.
Well, I will be doing that. Strongly worded comment.
Will you stay here?
Yeah. I like
Plattsburgh, this is home for you now?
Yeah, it's a good. It started off as a start, and it became something more than that. Now it is pretty much like a new home to me.
Oh, we would love to have both of you make an
Yeah,
entire
you
life here in this community, because you're two very bright, young people that can make such a great community to making our community better. So I hope you both decide to stay. I hope we make you feel welcome enough that you can stay.
So I have a couple of maybe last questions. So you're a young black woman in a predominantly white community. And I don't like the racial divide or even necessarily talking about it, but have you experienced any racial negativity in Plattsburgh, particularly being a young black woman up here?
I mean, this is going to sound extremely sad, but being a black woman in America, I mean, it is what it is. Like, it's a constant thing. It's not, you know, there's different types of racism. Yep. You know, talking to people that are just, you know, uneducated or, you know, don't know how to live in, you know, with different colored people, like, you know, that just say things to you and you're like, or people that try to pet me. You know, we have, I just started petting people back. But,
well, that's
yeah.
one way to do it.
Yeah,
there you go.
Okay, since we're doing this. But yeah, I definitely have. And I also, during the protest last year, I actually hooked up with some people and we created a small nonprofit called Chorus Coalition of Racial Equity. And, you know, we help in the community with, you know, stuff like that. Like, it's a racially motivated nonprofit. So
Yep.
it's kind of finding that stuff. And it's been really cool. And, you know, and especially with the election, it's been scary.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, it's funny. I go back to Dave, and when Dave and I became friends, you know, I'm a registered Republican. I lean somewhat conservative, you know, and Dave is a very liberal black man. And at first, I don't know that we even thought we could get along. And then we sat and we had some conversations. And after some of our conversations, one of the things we both realized is that, you know, for me, I realized that racism is alive and well more than I might want to think or acknowledge. For him, he recognized that everybody who is a Republican or a conservative isn't necessarily a bad racist. And I think that when you're able to sit and talk like that, you begin to realize that, forget about the color of somebody's skin or their gender or any of that, we're all way more alike than we are different. And if we could just get to that place where we recognize that, we'd live in such a better society. And, you know, my hat's off to you for what you do. Can I ask you a kind of pointed question? Sure. Did you ever think that in the future you might run for office or do something in that arena? And I ask you that because you have a personality and a demeanor that screams that kind of activist stuff.
So I actually have thought about it. I'm not gonna say I haven't.
Right.
I'm actually going to school in the fall. I'm going to SUNY. And I think that I'm going to at some point. I mean, I'm a little scared being a black woman. I mean, you saw what they did to Michelle. Yeah. I mean, it was like, she was just the first lady and people like attacked her like she was, you know, so I mean, that scares me, but I think that I will one day. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think it's important for women, and particularly women of color, to find their voice and to use it for the greater good. It has to become a familiar sound in people's ears. We have to get acclimated to wanting to hear women speak. And so for young women like you to decide that I'm going to bravely, amidst all of my fear, take a step out into a public arena and have my voice heard, it's a huge deal to turning the tide to the way things are in the world. So congratulations, you'll get my support 100% if that's a path you decide to choose.
I'm going to be microaggressive. You don't have any problem speaking. Was that microaggressive right there? Was it? Was that a microaggression? Okay. You know what? So we have a great deal of fun doing this, and we talk and we joke and we do that stuff because I think it's important also to be able to. There's nothing humorous about some of the serious issues that are going on, but the more that we can invoke humor and be just people, I think the better off we are.
Humor and humanism, right?
Yeah,
and the reality is,
you know,
you're so right. Some of the greatest stressors in life, we have to have a little bit of comic relief to make it real.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to wrap up. Have anything else you want to add today?
No, I really appreciate all the support in this community and everything, and I'm glad I got to be a part of this.
That's very cool. Well, thank you for coming on. You know, it's oftentimes people don't want to come and speak, you know, publicly or on, you know, put yourself on video or whatever. I will tell you, the first few times, you know, I've never really been a public figure, but the first few times I became public. The first few times I spoke publicly,
Mike.
and then you see yourself on camera and TV. I'm like, oh my God, do I actually look like that? Do I actually sound like that? Oh my God, that's off. Like, that's off. I needed counseling to get over the fact that I look so bad and sound so bad. It was absolutely terrible.
But at least your words are so inspiring. So, you know, it makes up for all the rest of.
That was microaggressive right there. That was sarcasm. That was
getting it. I'm figuring out how to be microaggressive. Yay!
Do you have anything else that you would like to add?
No, not that I can think of, but thank you for having me on and, you know, thinking of me.
We're so glad to include
We actually would, and I don't mean this as a slight to Justin, because we love Justin too, and we may ultimately bring him back because he'll be an MHAB graduate at some point.
Yeah,
and
he will.
We would like to do that. But I think that you have a unique story, and not necessarily through anything you do, but just because of who you are. And we probably, because we think that in talking to Dave, you know, race and recovery and youth and recovery, which you are really important, and you fit a couple of those kind of criteria. So we might we might bring you back.
Okay, sounds good.
We might not, though.
Yes,
Did I just say that?
You did. We're going to be happy to check in with both of you and see how your path and your life continues on if you continue to include us and include your story in a way that can help others, which is really why we're here.
And you tell Brandon from me that he should be very nice to you, and he should consider himself very lucky for being in a relationship with you. Much like I consider myself very lucky to be in a relationship with my wife.
I will let him know.
Well,
and me, you're so
and
lucky
I have
to
to put
me.
up with you. Kelly, do you have anything you want to add today?
No.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm good.
Brittany, how'd we do today? You know what? We could suck, and you wouldn't tell us, would you?
She would. I think she'd tell us.
She would tell us in the privacy of our own place.
She would find some very kind way to.
Did we come up
tell
with
you.
a new out, by the way?
Oh my gosh,
we don't,
we do.
because we can't. We're
I
done
know.
with COVID.
I know we are.
So
maybe we can do MHAB out.
all right. So I want to say thank you for coming, and I'm really sorry that Betsy screwed up your invite. You should have
Guilty as
known
charged.
beforehand
Yeah,
to come
I'm so
here.
sorry
That
with
was
my apology.
really wrong. And then when she first called you and talked to you on the phone, she didn't even acknowledge that she made a mistake. So after we got off the phone, I said, "Wait a minute. This is like you didn't even tell her that it was all you."
He doesn't understand that, you know, you don't introduce yourself with, "Oh my God, I screwed this whole thing up." You at least want to make an introduction and say hi.
Well, I would think you would be comfortable doing that. It happens most of the time. Like I would have thought by now you would have been very comfortable about that. So we want to say yes, thank you both. Thank you both for coming.
Thank you.
Please visit our site, mhab.org, mhabmarketplace.org. What other MHABs do we have, Bryn? Is that it? mhabmarketplaces.com, not .org. I stand corrected. Maybe I should go on there occasionally.
Might want to go on once or twice and see if you can
Once
see what
again,
we've created.
very cool sweatshirt, very cool T-shirt. We're very happy about those two things. Do you have any final words you want to say? Wrap up.
I only always want to say thanks to everyone who is listening in on the stories that we have to share and the people that we have to share. We're very fortunate, like I said, to have two amazing young people, not from our area, come here for their path, and hope that you'll stay and continue to grow our community into someplace incredibly special. You'll be foundational to making that happen. So thank you so much for that. That's what I got.
We have to kick dirt on your white shoes. I'm getting very annoyed with
picking
looking
on
at
my
your brand
white
new white shoes. We need to kick some dirt on those so they can be a little bit dirtier. All right, guys, thanks again. We will be back next week with it. What are we doing next week? Do we know?
Next week, it's you and John Bernardi.
Oh, me and Bernardi from United Way.
Bernarducciolini.
And you're not going to be here.
I'm not going to be here.
And then the week after, you're not here either.
We're not doing anything.
No, we are.
Oh,
Me
you guys.
and we're going to do the production team. Telly and Brinny are going to get a little camera
And so
play.
I won't be back for until 3 weeks, and we'll have Greg Freeman from the UVM Health Network at CVPH.
I get 2 weeks without you.
You do.
Oh my God, I'm so happy.
I love vacation.
It's going to be great. It's going to be a great 2 weeks. All right, thanks again for coming, and we are
MHAB
MHAB
out.
out. MHAB out. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for joining us today at Recovery Uncovered. No matter where you are in your recovery journey, or if you're supporting the recovery journey of a loved one, just know today is the first day of the rest of your life. Visit our website at mhab.org.
And if you want to become an old-timer in recovery, don't use and don't die. This has been Recovery Uncovered.